Welcome to Out of Pocket with Michael Davis on Tobacco Road Sports Radio, TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com, and WWBG 1470 AM as part of your TGI Friday lineup. I'm your host, Michael Davis, and we have a big show for you today. You may also be watching our YouTube channel under the Tobacco Road Sports Radio banner. But yesterday was the NBA trade deadline, but this Sunday is Super Bowl Sunday. We have a huge show in line for us, and joining us today, we got Out of Pocket regular John Cox. John, your team's in the Super Bowl. How are you feeling?
I feel great, Mike. Go Birds.
That makes me cringe. So I had to go find a guy who's going to hopefully be on my side of things. We got Chris Clark from the Locked On Chiefs podcast. Chris, it's your first time on the Out of Pocket. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm really looking forward to this game, and I think that it's going to be a very good game. And go Chiefs, but, kind of expected to say that, so there you go.
Go Chiefs. Hey, we can be homers on this podcast, on this radio show, and unfortunately, my Cowboys did not make it, but the Kansas City Chiefs did. And, Chris, we're going to start with you because this is shocking to me, the injuries that the Chiefs has had, primarily to their receiving core. Not even talking about losing Tyreek Hill in the offseason, trading him away to Miami, but you got Juju down, you got Tony down, you got Hardman down. Pat Mahomes hasn't even been fully healthy. In terms of this game on Sunday, how healthy do you expect the Chiefs after a 2-week rest, and does their health matter in terms of the outcome of this game?
So Hardman's on IR. He's done for the season. Everybody else, I think, is going to play. And I think it's going to be a situation where they're going to be ready to go. And we'll see on Juju and Tony. I know that both of them, it looks like, are trending in the right direction. We have not received another practice report. They're practicing late. So we haven't seen that yet to see whether or not they practice in full. But I would imagine that all of them did. The only person that didn't practice in full was Tony. And from what I've been hearing, he practiced and was running all over the place trying to get ready for this game. So I think that they're going to be in good shape. And I do think injuries do matter. But I think Kansas City's in a good place going into this game.
Yeah. And who knows, like when you factor in Pat Mahomes' injury, I would probably take Mahomes at like 40% rather than a lot of the quarterbacks at 95 or 100%. Do you expect Pat Mahomes to be his full self this game?
Full, no, but I do think that he's going to be a lot better than people think he's going to be. You saw what he was able to do against the Bengals. He didn't move a lot, but he moved enough. And he's got 2 more weeks to come back from that injury. And quite frankly, a lot of people didn't expect him to be able to even play in the Bengals game. And he played pretty well. So I'm thinking that he's going to be a lot better this time around. Sounds like they've really pushed him early on in the week in practice to make sure that everything is good. And from everything I've heard, there's no real pain shooting up his leg, so he should be good.
And John, with the Eagles defense going up against Patrick Mahomes, you guys have had a pretty good defense this year. I know I've experienced that watching some of your games. Darius Slay, CJ Johnson, you guys got the defense. You guys got the interior pass rush, Fletcher Cox. What do you need the Eagles to do to slow down Patrick Mahomes in this offense?
Yeah, it's a tough task. If you look at the numbers from last year when they played here in Philadelphia, it was one of Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce's all-time career games. I think Tyreek Hill also had multiple touchdowns that game. Of course, Tyreek Hill isn't here this time around, so pass rush, I guess, is just the key. I guess the Chiefs this week get to Pat, get him on the ground, maybe generate a couple turnovers. I'm not worried about the back end. I'm more worried about the scheme that the Eagles play. It's very much a sit back and play zone and don't press and don't let the big plays come, kind of bend don't break defense. And I think Patrick Mahomes is very comfortable at this phase of his career, and especially on his leg, sitting back and taking the underneath stuff and killing you one play at a time. I think he's capable of that. I think that's what our defense is kind of built to do, just send 4 and drop everybody else back. So it'll be tough to see. I I don't expect a big game from any of the weapons other than Travis Kelce. Of course, the best tight end in the National Football League. I'm sure he'll have a great day. But, on paper, yeah, it's a great matchup. But at the end of the day, the biggest problem for this defense will probably be our scheme with Jonathan Gannon and the defense that he runs.
And, John, you referenced it. You're going to have to defend Travis Kelce. And, guys, we would be remiss without saying or mentioning it's the Kelce Bowl. You got Travis Kelce. You got Jason Kelce. People tend to dismiss the Harbaugh we got a few years ago with John Harbaugh, Jim Harbaugh coaching against each other in the Super Bowl. But this is the first time players are brothers and playing against one another in the Super Bowl. And so both of these guys really need a big game and are key aspects to their team. You got Travis Kelce versus the Eagles defense, as you mentioned, John. And we also have Jason Kelce versus the Chiefs interior pass rush. Chris, I can start with you. Who do you think has the better game and who you think is more successful this Sunday?
Travis Kelce is going to be very hard to stop. And I like what John said. I think that the defense that they play is going to play into Patrick Mahomes' hands and the Chiefs' hands. I mean, I think that he has shown that, after trying to go downfield so much in his career, he has started to get to a point where he's taking what the defense is giving him. And that's the most important thing that he can do as a quarterback. So I think that that's going to be key in this game. As far as which Kelce brother has the best game, if Jason Kelce has the best game, Kansas City is going to be in trouble, because the biggest thing to me that he does so well is get to the second level and knock out linebackers. If he's doing that and he's doing that well, that's a problem for Kansas City in the defending the run, and that could be a problem for them to win this game.
That would be shocking, because one of the big matchups I'm watching is Jason Kelce versus Chris Jones. Chris Jones has wreaked havoc throughout the playoffs, throughout the entire season, really. And if he's getting past Chris Jones in the first level of defense and going to the linebackers, that could be an issue. John, do you think Jason Kelce for your team has the better game this Sunday?
I mean, it's hard to, two different positions, two different things they do for their offense. Just by like the eye test, I think Travis Kelce is going to have the better game. I fully expect them to come out and feed him anytime it's third and more than 5 or 6. They're looking for Travis Kelce. They're going to move him around. They're going to get him open. If you had to pick a weak point on our defense, it's probably our linebacker group. So it'll be interesting to see kind of what we do when we match up in those situations. If you put Gardner Johnson, who's a great, flexible defensive back, can play safety, can play corner. If they'll match him up on Travis Kelce, if they'll, double or bracket or something else. But I think that Travis Kelce will actually have a better game, just because, he's so integral to what they do in the pass game and the run game. And he's probably going to have a touchdown, which I think I'd be willing to bet my, tuition that Jason Kelce will not have a touchdown in this game Sunday.
I don't know. We've seen some crazy stuff from Philadelphia in the Super Bowl. We got the Philly special.
That'd be crazy if he had a touchdown.
It can happen. It could really happen. And what I'm hearing from you guys is it's going to be about the scheme. It's going to be about who is put in the right position to succeed. And this coaching matchup, this is not only the Kelce Bowl, this seems like the Andy Reid Bowl. Andy Reid, I believe, is the first coach in NFL history to win 100 games for 2 different franchises, with Philadelphia, with Kansas City. He was never able to win a Super Bowl in Philadelphia. He's going for his second in Kansas City right now. And then you have Nick Sirianni, who was actually fired by Andy Reid while he was at Kansas City. So, Nick Sirianni, he lives with a chip on his shoulder. Andy Reid, perhaps I would put him right below Bill Belichick in terms of the best head coaches in the NFL, at least for my lifetime. I'm going to start with you, John. How important is this game for Nick Sirianni's legacy after he was fired by Andy Reid not long ago?
Yeah, it's important for both their legacies. If Reid wins another one, he can say that he was, the the architect of a dynasty. People forget how dominant the Eagles were in the early 2000s, I think. We went to FC championship games. Donovan McNabb was a great quarterback, but he probably wasn't the best in the NFC at the time. Andy Reid, he knows how to call an offense. He knows how to call plays. That's probably Reid, is his ability to be a head coach and a play caller. A lot of times, head coaches kind of struggle with doing that balance, that tightrope head coach, and being aware situationally and being an X's and O's guys and calling plays and scripting out your offense and what your scheme wants to do. But yeah, I mean, it's huge for Andy Reid. Nick Sirianni got a long career ahead of him. Has the 1 seed this year, took his team to the Super Bowl with a really second-year quarterback in Jalen Hurts. Their office this year, all year. So I expect Sirianni to be around a little bit longer. I wouldn't be surprised if, this is close to the end for Andy Reid's career. Not like here he's going to retire, but, he's one of the oldest head coaches in the NFL. He coached here in Philadelphia for 14 years, which tells you something. But, yeah, I mean, it's a testament to Willie Caller, and as a head coach, he's phenomenal. He was great in Philadelphia. But I probably stands to gain more. He could really move up into that upper tier of head coaches in NFL history with another Super Bowl win.
And I'll agree with that, John. And Andy Reid is 64 years old. He would be 65 next season. That is where coaches can still coach at an elite level. I don't think Andy Reid's lost his touch at all. I mean, obviously they're in the Super Bowl, but this could be one of the big matchups for Andy Reid because it is against his former team. And both of you watch Andy Reid a lot. Chris Clark from the Locked On Chiefs podcast. Andy Reid's legacy, really, could it come down to this game? And how much does his pride set in going against the team that canned you for who it was, Chip Kelly?
Yeah, and I think that there is a lot of pride there. And I was surprised when Reid came to Kansas City that he didn't take a year off or he didn't take any time. It was a matter of, no, I'm going to get back in coaching. And he was hired in Kansas City within days of leaving the Eagles. And, it's been amazing to watch what he's been able to do with this team. And it's not just building, they went from 2-14 the year before Reid went to making the playoffs the next year. And they've won 7 straight AFC West titles. They've been in 5 straight and hosted 5 straight AFC championship games. Obviously won 3 of them, lost 2 of them, been to 3 Super Bowls in 4 years. He is a great coach, and Mahomes has taken him to another level. But he has also built Mahomes from, I won't say the ground up, but pretty close. I mean, Pat has a lot of talents that he brings to the table, obviously, but the mental side of the game, seeing everything the way that he's seen it on the field, knowing what's coming pre-snap and post-snap. Reid has he has huge fingers in Patrick's makeup and how he's playing quarterback right now. So I think that's huge for Kansas City. But does this cement his legacy? I wouldn't say it does, mainly because I think he's already cemented his legacy. I think once he won the first Super Bowl in Kansas City in 2019, I think that cemented his legacy. Is this going to make his legacy better? Absolutely. And I would say I understand the thought process that Reid maybe is probably closer to retirement than Sirianni. I agree with that completely. I'm not going to be shocked if he's not coaching and if he's coaching in his 70s. The guy seems to have a lot of energy. He seems to love what he does. He loves his players, and all of his players seem to love him. I think he's going to be around for a little bit longer.
Andy Reid's always had the reputation of being a player's coach. And when you go back, and I love Andy Reid, I think he, again, right below Belichick in terms of the head coaches of my lifetime, last 25 years or so. Andy Reid goes 1-3 in the Super Bowl. Chris, does that not make you question anything?
Okay, so I would say this. When you look at him going 1-3, you have to remember where this team started. They had 11 rookies, I think, that started the year on this team. They've got 6 rookies starting on defense. This was supposed to be a retooling year for Kansas City. They weren't supposed to, people were thinking that they'd be good, but the thought was that this was a retooling year. This is when they were going to, start building and trying to get better for the future. Him getting to the Super Bowl in a year like that, I think he's going to see several more Super Bowls in the next couple of years because of the team that they built and the way they built it around Mahomes. I understand what you're saying about 1-3 in a Super Bowl, but man, with the team that he's got right now, I see that hard press to get to 1-3, but I also think that you have to look at the team that he has and say, okay, well, they've got 24 new players this year alone. 10 or 11 of them are rookies, and a lot of the rookies have played huge snaps for him. And a lot of people didn't think they'd even be here, and I think he's done a phenomenal job with them.
I will give you credit, and I'll give myself a little humbling right here, because at the beginning of the year, this show started back in August. I did not expect the Chiefs or the Eagles to be here. I didn't expect them to have the number 1 seed. I didn't expect them to score as many points as they did. I know John's ready to be like, I told you so. I can tell it on his face right now. And for the Chiefs to lose a guy like Tyreek Hill and to have those rookies just plug in and play like Pacheco, like who knew where he would come from, goes to show not only the Chiefs have done a really good job, but the Eagles. We've kind of touched on keys of the game, but we haven't really picked a outright winner. So, John, I'll start with you because, it is Chris's first time on the show. We'll give him a little reprieve. I want who you think wins, what's the final score, and your Super Bowl MVP. And you can't pick Tom Brady this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think pretty much everyone agrees with, what this game will come down to, and that is that the Eagles have a better roster and a better team. And the question is, can Pat Mahomes overcome the fact that he does not have the better team? Can he be the guy that wins the game for the Chiefs? And, if I'm an Eagles fan and I'm thinking about if Patrick Mahomes has the ball with anything more than 2 seconds clock and he's down anything like less than 7, like I'm terrified. I am absolutely horrified of Pat Mahomes having the ball in a last second situation. So, you got to get out and you got to beat this guy. So if the Eagles win, which I'm saying the Eagles win, I don't think that Patrick Mahomes is going to be able to overcome the talent difference between these two rosters. So I'll say Eagles 24 and Chiefs 20 maybe. Maybe an Eagles last second touchdown. And my Super Bowl MVP, I got to go with my guy, the number 2 quarterback in the NFL right now. He's been hated on this podcast before, but he's earned some respect. You got to put some respect on his name. My Super Bowl MVP pick is Jalen Hurts, the one and only. I'll give him 2 touchdowns, 1 rushing, 1 throwing. We'll see what happens.
Okay, well, you did call him the second best quarterback in the NFL. I'm sure he's behind somebody on the other side. Chris, what's your out-of-pocket prediction for the Super Bowl with the MVP?
I think the MVP is going to be Patrick Mahomes, but, you look at this game, and I agree. The Eagles have a better roster. I'm not going to argue that. I've said that on my podcast for the past couple of weeks. They have a better roster. It's overall more talented. The question really becomes, yes, it's a question of whether or not Patrick Mahomes can overcome it, but it's also a question of how much better is the Eagles roster than Kansas City's. I would argue Kansas City's offensive line has been top 5. I'm not going to say they're the number 1. The Eagles, I think, have probably the best O-line in football, but Kansas City's offensive line has been good all season long. The question becomes, can Kansas City's defense slow down the Eagles? And is Jalen Hurts a quarterback that can play from behind? If Kansas City gets up in this game, that's going to be a lot more difficult for the Eagles to come back from. And that's, I think, something that is going to hamper their ability to win this game. And I will say, I just picked this on my podcast a couple minutes ago. I'm going to go with the same score prediction, 35-28 Kansas City.
There you have it. Both of them are sticking to their guns. We're going to find out what happens Super Bowl Sunday. John Cox is going to stick with me for some basketball talk, NBA trade deadline. But Chris Clark, this is your first time on Out Pocket with Michael Davis. It's great having you. For our fans who want to listen to you, where can they find you?
I'm on the Locked On Chiefs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We cover every single team for the entire season, 5 days a week. So And it's actually all year round, 5 days a week. We are doing podcasts. So you can find me at Locked On Chiefs. That's usually where I'm tweeting from, but I'm also Chris Clark NFL on Twitter as well.
And they're super fun. They're super easy to listen to. I'm a Cowboys fan, so I listen to the Locked On Cowboys podcast a lot. Preparing for the Super Bowl, I listen to the Locked On Chiefs, of course, listen to the Locked On Eagles, listen to the collab you guys did this week. It's really great stuff. Go follow my guy, Chris Clark, NFL on Twitter for continuous content. And when we come back on Out of Pocket with Michael Davis, we're going to talk about this NBA trade deadline and where Brooklyn messed up. All that next on the show. All right. Welcome back to Out of Pocket with Michael Davis on Tobacco Road Sports Radio, tobaccoroadsportsradio.com, and WWBG 1470 AM as part of your TGI Friday lineup. Thank you so much to Chris Clark from the Locked On Chiefs podcast for joining us in that last segment. And we got John Cox staying on the show. He defended his Eagles. I don't know if he'll defend his 76ers here in a minute, but we also are welcoming in Out of Pocket regular Jackson Cordray. Jackson, how are you doing?
I'm good, man. I didn't hear what John said about the Eagles this past segment, but I can tell you one thing. They're not winning the Super Bowl, and I'm taking Kansas City all the way, and I'm ready to talk some NBA deadline.
Hey, Jackson's taking Kansas City. I think that's a 2-1. I didn't even make a pick yet. I don't know if I will. We'll save that Out of Pocket take for later. But it is Out of Pocket with Michael Davis, and I believe truly none of my takes are out of pocket. And I feel really good in saying that I was right. When Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving teamed up in Brooklyn, brought James Harden over, and then when Harden didn't work out and they traded him to Philadelphia for Ben Simmons, the entire time I'm like, guys, everybody's hyping this team up, but this is not going to work. A, lost faith in Kyrie Irving a long time ago. B, just they don't love basketball. And so what's very unfortunate is the Brooklyn Nets have just been a disaster franchise, not only with the KD, Kyrie, Harden, Simmons, but even back 10 years ago with Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, Deron Williams, Joe Johnson, Brook Lopez, when they made that trade with the Boston Celtics. This is Brooklyn's MO. And I'll be honest, this was not going to work from the beginning with Brooklyn. We can finally say that this experiment was a failure. And I know John and I have been talking throughout the day. He doesn't agree with me on this. John, explain yourself on this one.
Okay, I want to say it was a failure. They didn't win a title. They didn't do anything. But it's not like these three guys played together and they played an entire season and then flamed out in the playoffs or something like that. You know, they had a pandemic. Kyrie had his issues, which are all inexcusable, of course. But, you know, this trio never got to share the court in a meaningful way, super meaningful game. It is a failed experiment, but I think that, you know, it's also kind of sad that we never get to see, you know, what this could have been at its absolute apex. Again, you know, it's a failure. I'm glad the Nets, you know, cut their ties, you know, kind of saw the losses, saw the writing on the wall, went into rebuild, got what they got when they could for Kevin Durant and for Kyrie. It'll be interesting. I think the Nets, you know, they picked up some good players. Mikal Bridges, of course, he's a Philly guy. Not a Nova fan, but he's a Philly guy, so you got to shout out Mikal Bridges. So, you know, it's not like the Nets, you know, just gave away everybody. They got some stuff in return, but, you know, as a fan of good basketball, you have to be, you know, a little bit, I don't know if you want to say sad, disappointed that you never get to see, you know, how good of an NBA offense we could have seen, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. And on paper, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, James Harden, before Ben Simmons is an offensive guy. That team should have been averaging 110 points a game easily. But it didn't work out that way. And it's really just because of the drama that particularly Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant played into it too. James Harden played into it too. But it wasn't a success. Jackson, when you look back on this era of Brooklyn, what do you see?
I see a team that was trying to contend, a team that went all in, and you can't fault them for that. Injury played a role, personalities play a role, but that's also how a team's going to work, right? You're going to have personalities in the building. You're going to have injuries that plague you. I don't see it as not to say necessarily it's a failed experiment. I just see it as an experiment. We saw a team that was loaded with offensive talent play a total of 30 games together. The trio didn't play that many games together, and we can honestly go back in time and look at Kevin Durant's, that Kevin Durant lining the 3-point line as them being one game away from the finals, and next thing you know, we're looking at a championship. So really and truly, I don't see this as a failed experiment. They went after something, it didn't work out, and you try something again. You trade away the pieces. Now you're looking at the Suns picks all the way up to 2029. Suns won't be loaded then, and you start the rebuild. They've got plenty of guys. Mikal Bridges, who I had as my defensive player of the year. I mean, they have these young pieces around them, and the depth is good. I don't see it as a failed experiment at all, really.
Mikal Bridges, as much as I like him, as much as he's helped my fantasy basketball team, rather, defensive player might be an out-of-pocket take, but, I mean, and this goes to show, like, you give up KD, you give up Kyrie in a week, and did Brooklyn, get enough from their trades? I'm looking at what they got back. They got Spencer Dinwiddie, they got Dorian Finney-Smith, they got a first-round pick in just 2 seconds in the deal that sent Kyrie to Dallas, and Brooklyn, with the Kevin Durant trade, it was like they got Mikal Bridges that we mentioned just a few moments ago. They got Cameron Johnson, Jay Crowder, which Jay Crowder was shipped out to Milwaukee. They got 4 first-round picks, and they got a 28 pick swap. I think the 4 first-round picks are good, but I'm like, okay, you can use it for trades. You can get somebody good, but, I mean, guys, this Brooklyn franchise is a disaster. I don't know if anyone who is going to want to go play in Brooklyn for a long, long, long time. And if he's not crazy, Kyrie Irving did not want to play in Brooklyn after who knows what. I mean, they were a 4th seed in the East. You guys had a legitimate chance to go at it. And I just don't see him when he moves to Dallas. I don't see him working with Luka Doncic very well. Jackson, you're wearing the Luka Doncic jersey. How do you expect this to affect the favorite for the MVP of the NBA this year?
I see this being a perfect piece to add with. The NBA is all about double teams, and you're going to have one guy isolated. Well, now you can't double Luka, and Luka's the best in the league outside of Bron at finding the open guy. Luka's going to find the open guy every time. And the thing is with Kyrie is that Kyrie's not just a dribble shooter. He's a spot shooter. He could stand, you can get him, if you're going to double Luka, you can have Kyrie spot shoot somewhere. And next thing you know, that's a 3. And Luka's going to find him. And you're going to see that demonstrated over and over again. Or, my God, Kyrie's double teamed at the end of a game and we need a clutch shot. Well, that means you can't double team Luka, and Luka has the one-on-one. Or all these different options. I see it as a perfect. Honestly, the ball can go around plenty because Kyrie isn't extremely ball dominant. Luka is. So Luka being the ball dominant guard of the 2, and Kyrie can spot shoot and do all these other things. I see it as a good pair, really. Does that mean they beat the Suns or the Warriors in the Western Conference Finals or semifinals? I don't see that. But I see it as a good pair, really and truly, at the end of the day. They match each other's skills very well.
I have to disagree on that. I feel like Kyrie needs the ball in his hands as that point guard. Luka Doncic is a 6'7", 6'8" point guard where he's been running the offense. Grant, he didn't have much help in Dallas, so he pretty much had to run the offense himself. And the whole question is Kyrie going to be on the court? Is Kyrie going to make another excuse whether to play basketball or not? And this sucks because I'm a Duke fan. I would be wearing my Duke hoodie right now, but I didn't want any association with Kyrie Irving when I made this claim. I don't think Kyrie Irving loves basketball. And the bigger issue, I believe, for the Dallas Mavericks is I don't think Kyrie Irving wants to be a Dallas Maverick. His one request was to be traded to Los Angeles to team with LeBron James with the Los Angeles Lakers, who just passed Kareem on the all-time scoring list this week. And Kyrie, it's telling, hasn't signed an extension as of now with the Dallas Mavericks. I give it a year, if that, where Kyrie's already left Dallas and they've given away Dinwiddie, Finney Smith. They've given away the first-round pick. John, do you see this being a long-term solution for Kyrie Irving, or am I out of pocket for saying
that? I wouldn't be surprised if he moves on team-wise and changes up where he's at. I think it's a little silly to say that Kyrie Irving does not love basketball. I think that Kyrie Irving probably plays more basketball than we do, like anything, if that makes sense. I feel like he's probably played more basketball than any of us have done anything in our entire lives. He's all about the game of basketball. He's a good player. Obviously, teams are willing to take the risks that come on with his personality. That can be a little weird at times. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he's moved on. To touch on whether or not he'll work with Luka, I mean, he worked with LeBron. LeBron is kind of the same archetype as Luka. He's just, cranked up the athleticism to him. But him and Luka are kind of the same player when you look at it style wise. And if it worked with Luka and or with LeBron and Kyrie, I don't know why it couldn't work with LeBron and Kyrie or Luka and Kyrie as well.
Well, and that's the question. Could it work on paper? Could it work on the court? How much are we going to see them play together? And that's the reservation I have when it comes to Kyrie Irving, because he was supposed to be playing well with his buddy Kevin Durant, and now Kevin Durant is a Phoenix Sun, guys. KD is with the Suns, and Jackson, I'm going to ask you, keeping Chris Paul, keeping Devin Booker, keeping DeAndre Ayton to acquire Kevin Durant for Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, Jay Crowder, 4 first-round picks. Does this make the Phoenix Suns the favorite again in the West? Or John, if you want to hop in on this one.
Yeah, I don't know. The West was already pretty wide open. I couldn't tell you who was going to come out of this before today. The Lakers did themselves some favor. They acquired some pieces today. I didn't expect them to come out, but I mean, the West, it's weird when you look at it because they have a lot of kind of young teams coming up. The standings right now are Nuggets, Grizzlies, Kings. Like that's insane. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be a dogfight in the West, but when you look at the experience that Kevin Durant, Chris Paul, and Devin Booker have, they've all played in finals games. Kevin Durant's played in multiple. I don't know. It's tough. When the Pelicans and Zion comes back and he's healthy, he's going to be a problem. The Warriors are still the Warriors. They just added Gary Payton back, who was a big part of their success last year in their playoff run. You've got that working around. I don't expect the Timberwolves to still be in the playoffs later in the year. But this Kings team, it could be a year too early type thing for them. You got the Grizzlies and Ja. You've got the 2-time MVP, Nikola Jokic, at the 1 seed right now. There's so many teams in the West, but I mean, overall star power, man, and it's got to be the Suns or Warriors, right?
This could be, and I give it to Denver. They're leading the West right now. They're honestly only behind Boston in terms of win percentage this year. Sacramento is going to end perhaps, I believe, the longest drought for an NBA team in terms of reaching the postseason. I see them getting bounced by whoever they meet in the first round, honestly. But Phoenix just, if they can get Kevin Durant, again, this is a reservation, but Kevin Durant now all of a sudden finds himself in a Golden State-like atmosphere he's surrounded by Curry, Thompson, Draymond Green. Now you're surrounded by Chris Paul, Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, which isn't the caliber of that Warriors team, but it's pretty on close.
Yeah, and they've also got a great coach too. With Monty, sure he'll find a way to use Kevin Durant. It's kind of hard not to find a way to use Kevin Durant. But yeah, I mean, he is, I don't know, because Devin Booker can play so well off the ball. So can Kevin Durant, DeAndre. And if he becomes a problem again, if he becomes a dog man, like the number 1 overall pick that he was picked at, if he can, tap into that, like it's unstoppable, which we were saying the same thing about the Nets 2 years ago. So you never know what's going to happen. A little more stable environment for them, for Kevin. Yeah, man, I don't think the Suns in 7 unless it's the Warriors and it's just depth and experience kind of overtaking the Suns. It's going to be a fun race in the West this year.
They did give away Michael Bridges, and that's the piece where I'm like, he could have been X factor. Put him on Klay Thompson or even Steph Curry and watch him do his magic. But it'll be interesting, and we gotta get into a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the rest of the NBA trade deadline, and we may even mention our teams, the Miami Heat and Philadelphia 76ers, what we did, or more importantly, what we didn't do at the deadline, next on Out of Pocket. Welcome back to Out of Pocket with Michael Davis on Tobacco Road Sports Radio, TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com, and WWBG 1470 AM as part of your TGI Friday lineup. You're also watching on our YouTube channel. Jackson had some technical difficulties. We can try to get him back in, but I'm joined right now by John Cox. And if you love Out of Pocket with Michael Davis, you can't get enough. We are on Instagram, @OutOfPocket_TRSR. You can also follow Tobacco Road Sports Radio on Facebook, on Instagram. They're doing a nice little contest right now, so you may want to hop over onto the Facebook page, see what that's all about, maybe get a free book. And when it comes to free, there's nothing free at the trade deadline unless you're just trading a bunch of like second-round picks or whatever. But there was a trade, or actually multiple trades with one organization, and that was the Los Angeles Lakers. Lakers actually did trade away Russell Westbrook, ending the Westbrook, LeBron, AD era. And they got in return D'Angelo Russell and Malik Beasley to the Lakers. D'Angelo Russell becoming a Los Angeles Laker once again. They also trade away Thomas Bryant to the Denver Nuggets. Lakers have been pretty active. They got Mo Bamba. No, not the song. They didn't get the song right, so but they trade away Patrick Beverley to Orlando Magic for Mo Bamba. Lakers made some deals after LeBron was like, hey, you guys know what you need to be doing. And John, I have to pose this to you. Did the GM get his wishes, even though he didn't get Kyrie Irving?
That team, I think the Lakers, overperformed with what we thought they were going to do at the deadline or be able to do at the deadline. They acquire, they bring back D'Angelo Russell, who's not a phenomenal talent, but he can be a needle mover. He can be the guy that's playing point guard while LeBron's gone and get you a bucket in ISO situations, that kind of stuff. And a distributor. But I think, bringing in a guy like Malik Beasley, This was the formula when they won the championship. It was defense and shooters around Anthony Davis and LeBron James. And, none of it's going to matter if Anthony Davis cannot stay on the court. I hate to harp on injuries, but I think it's a valid criticism for a guy like Anthony Davis. He had that stretch at the beginning of the NBA season this year. He was dropping 30 bombs just every other night on everybody, putting up 30 points, getting 15 rebounds a night. He was a beast. He was unstoppable. And so, if the Lakers can get that in the playoffs for a sustained amount of time, they could be looking at a real playoff run where they win 2 or 3 series. And, you never know what's going to happen in the NBA. I would pick this Lakers team to beat, the Kings in the first series of that with. I might take them to beat a team like the Clippers or the Pelicans just because of, the experience that LeBron and AD have in a playoff environment. The trouble is, when you run into those teams that have more talent, deeper roster, better coaching, like the Nuggets, maybe the Mavericks and the Warriors, just talented. They have the people, they have the coaching, they have the depth, all the things you need to really compete in the NBA.
And it's very interesting because if you look at the standings, the Lakers are actually 13th in the Western Conference right now, just above the Spurs and the Rockets. And of course, they're about 2.5 games outside of the 10th spot, which would be in the play-in tournament. But you look at the teams above them, the Oklahoma City Thunder. I'm pretty sure the Lakers, with the roster they have after their trades, I feel like they could beat the OKC Thunder. I feel like Utah is going to start plummeting, even though Russell Westbrook's there now. He might get bought out. And then you just got to get over Portland. That's easy to do. Minnesota, that's easy to do. I believe the Warriors are going to excel this year. Sacramento could even drop into the play-in tournament right now because it's so close right now between the 3rd seed and 9th, 10th seed. It's only separated by 4 games right now. But you look at the Lakers roster and they improved. And because look at your starting 5 for them. You got, I'm assuming D'Angelo Russell is going to be starting at point guard. You got Malik Beasley. You got LeBron. You got Hachimura, who they acquired from the Wizards, I believe, a week or 2 ago. You got Anthony Davis. You could even put Anthony Davis back at the 4, have Mo Bamba at the 5. They don't have a lot of bench depth.
Yeah,
Ooh, Vanderbilt.
Definitely.
Vanderbilt's a good one.
Yeah.
They don't have a lot of depth, so that scares me if you're looking at the Lakers. But this is going to have to be LeBron, keep putting up numbers and scoring the ball and try to get, 7,000 beyond Kareem's number just to make it into the play-in. It could be a lot for them moving forward. But John, you and I were talking earlier, Philadelphia. I really want to get your thoughts on Thibault getting traded away. And do you think your team's now in a better position to contend in the East? Because they're the 3rd seed right now?
Yeah, they are. I expected more out of the trade deadline. I thought, Daryl Morey is a wheeler and dealer, so I thought that we would get more than. I'm not, super sad to see Matisse Thybulle go. He took away a lot on offense. Was not a great fit with a guy like Embiid, who's obviously super post dominant. So it's not what we sent away; it's what we didn't get back. Joel Embiid is a center, and a center in the NBA, you just don't know how long they're going to last. Unfortunately, it's just kind of a fact of, you can't expect a guy like Joel Embiid to play as long as LeBron James did. as a Sixers fan, I don't know how many more years of this Joel Embiid. I'm going to 6. Like, every year that we just sit on our hands is another year wasted of maybe the most like unique talent we've ever seen on the NBA. Curry level scorer, was one of the best mid-range shooters in the NBA last year. Has a handle, can take you coast to coast. Like, there's nothing Joel Embiid. It's just it's disgusting what the Philadelphia 76ers are doing. It's unfortunate. It's very unfortunate.
And one guy that comes to mind when you were talking about potentially wasting the career of a big man, I go back to Dirk Nowitzki. It took Dirk, 15, 17 years at Miami's expense, of course, to get his championship. And I remember saying at the onset of the year, I didn't like saying it, but Philadelphia was my favorite to make it out of the East, because you did have Harden, you did have Embiid, you did have Tobias Harris, and Tobias Harris has been kind of a flop right now because, you and I were talking, earlier before, we were backstage or whatever. We were talking Tobias Harris kind of overpaid. I mean, it's easy for us to say that, just being civilians and not NBA superstars. But when you look at what he doesn't give to the Philadelphia team, it's rough. I did like the PJ Tucker deal at the beginning of the offseason, but he hasn't even provided you guys much. So it's going to be very interesting to see. But hey, you did get Jalen McDaniels in that trade for Thibault. I would say that's a win, wouldn't you?
Yeah, it's a win. He's an actual two-way player. This year isn't overwhelming, but he's playing on a team with Karl Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards. So it's tough, to get your touches, but I think they were just looking what you can. Yeah, man. I mean, Tobias Harris is it's unfortunate. PJ Tucker, I'm kind of hoping that he turns it on for the playoffs, like he are 83-game players or 82-game players. And hopefully PJ Tucker is just a 16-game player and he's going to turn it on when we get there. But right now it's not a fun team to watch, the way they're constructed and what they do.
Hey, it could be worse. You could be a Miami Heat fan just sitting back and watching the team trade away Dwayne Dedmon to the Spurs for nothing, literally nothing. It was cash considerations. And I was expecting the team to deal away Kyle Lowry. I was hoping they wouldn't trade him away to Philadelphia, but maybe out west somewhere. It didn't look good. And that's a team where it's like, at least with Philadelphia, you're the third seed. You have a team to make a run. Miami, at the 6th seed right now, they'll probably go ahead of Brooklyn because Brooklyn's obviously not going to be in the position they are now. And Miami's going to have to probably match up against Cleveland or Philadelphia in a 4 or 5 seed matchup in the East. It's going to be very interesting. But one deal that hasn't been talked about, and that's more of a regional deal, because the Charlotte Hornets traded Mason Plumlee to the Clippers in return for Reggie Jackson. Don't know what's going to be the dynamic between Reggie Jackson, LaMelo Ball, Terry Rozier. That's still to be decided. But they leave a void at the big man for Charlotte. They're going to have to rely on Mark Williams, the second-year player out of Duke, to get the job done. I believe first-year player out of Duke. But this is pretty obvious because there's 4 teams right now who are pretty much in the Victor Wembanyama sweepstakes. Houston trade away a lot of assets. Eric Bledsoe. Spurs trade away their best player, Jacob Poeltl, the center. Detroit trade away Sadiq Bey. Charlotte trade away Mason Plumlee. And all 4 of those teams are in the Victor Wembanyama sweepstakes. The tanking for Wembanyama is a real thing. John, do you think this is a sign to give up on the season and Charlotte just throw the ball in the stands all year?
As a Philadelphia 76er fan, I do feel, uniquely qualified to speak on tanking. Yes, the Charlotte Hornets should tank for Victor Wembanyama or Scoot or whoever gets there. It's a little, it's whatever. I'm not going to go there or whatever. I'm not going to go off a tangent, but ever since the process, I think like every single bad team has been tanking and no one else seems to get called out for it. I think it was pretty much exclusively Sam Hinkie and the Philadelphia 76ers who got called out for it. It's a very unfortunate circumstance. That's all I'll say about it. The national news media is super biased against the city of Philadelphia. I won't get into it. But anyway,
out of pocket.
Yeah, I mean, it's they should tank that roster. I think like ever since I have watched the Hornets growing up, they haven't had a lot of star players, but for the past 5 years, all my Hornets friends have told me the same thing, and that's we don't have a dominant center, a real big man that can play. And so, add a 7'4" Victor Wembanyama and let's see what he does next to LaMelo Ball. Let's crank this thing up to 11, man. I'd love to see it.
Hey, the media does not hate Philadelphia. I hate Philadelphia. Well, I guess I'm the media now. Is that fair?
Listen, Joel Embiid should have one NBA MVP, and he should have one NBA first team, and he has neither. It's whatever. Neither here nor
NBA
there.
first team is kind of a shock right there. Not going to lie. But you're also playing in a league with Nikola Jokic. I mean,
we won't go. We won't go there. Let's not go there.
I would take Jokic over Embiid and that trust the process was literally just for, Joel Embiid. If you look at it, Ben Simmons was a bust. Jahlil Okafor was a bust. Should I keep going on? Michael Carter-Williams was a bust.
Okay, well, we did have
Markelle Fultz.
We had one rookie of the year in that bunch. We got a rookie of the year out of it. Yeah, it's tough. I don't know how much you know about the process, but we started it. It was happening. The NBA kind of forced our hand, said get rid of your general manager Sam Hinkie. So he was fired. We never got to see what his vision was. We don't know who he would have picked, who he would have drafted. It's all revisionist history. It's kind of pointless to go over it. But it'd be kind of like if Sam Presti got fired, 2 years ago. Who knows what OKC looks like? Who knows what OKC's doing? It was a failure. There's a lot of players I wish we had, like Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Mark Ingram, on our team. But it's ancient history, and now we have Harden and Embiid, and Doc Rivers. So life is great.
Yeah, I know you love yourself some Doc Rivers, but we mentioned Philadelphia. We got the Super Bowl this Sunday. Thank you so much for Chris Clark of the Lockdown Chiefs podcast coming in. I never even gave my Super Bowl prediction. Wanted to leave it to the very end of the show. Right now, the Eagles are 1.5 point favorite. I'm going to go my theory. You pick who you don't want to win. That way, you'll be happy with the right prediction, or you'll be happy with, actually them losing. So I'm actually going to go Philadelphia 31, Kansas City 30. I'm giving it a 1 point game. It's going to come down to the wire, and it's going to come down to Philadelphia having the ball in their hands at the very end. So that's my pick. Thank you so much for John joining us. Thank you for Jackson for hopping in for a little bit. Thank you for Chris Clark. It has been Out of Pocket with Michael Davis on Tobacco Road Sports Radio, tobaccoroadsportsradio.com, and WWBG 1470 AM as part of your TGI Friday lineup. We've got franchise players right after this. Thank you. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, and we will see you guys next week. And everyone, enjoy the Super Bowl.